I'm Teisha Bader with the JBS News update for Wednesday, February the 3rd, 2016. An Israeli border policewoman who was critically wounded today in a terror attack in Jerusalem's Old City has died. 19-year-old Hadar Cohen from the town of Or Yehuda was one of 3 people injured in the attack, which took place today at the Damascus Gate, when 3 Palestinians armed with rifles, knives, and explosives were noticed by Cohen and a fellow female officer, who asked the 3 to stop and show identification. While one of the Palestinians took out his ID, the other shot and stabbed the officers, critically wounding Cohen and seriously wounding the other officer. Security forces in the area shot and killed the terrorists. They were named by Palestinian news agency Ma'an as Ahmed Abu al-Raoub, Muhammad Kamil, and Muhammad Nasser. The victims were taken to Hadassah Hospital, where doctors tried to save Cohen's life, but she succumbed to her wounds several hours later. The second officer, 20 years old, is said to be in stable condition. A young Israeli man was also injured in the incident. He sustained light wounds. 2 pipe bombs taken from the scene were also safely defused by IDF sappers. Deputy Police Chief Avshalom Peled called today's attack an escalation. Peled said, as far as we can tell from the armaments, the terrorists planned a larger, more sophisticated attack. Ynet reports that the 3 terrorists were from the West Bank and entered Israel illegally, though it is not yet clear how. Meanwhile, Israel's foreign ministry strongly criticized CBS News for their coverage of the terror attack. The headline on their news site earlier today read, "3 Palestinians killed as daily violence grinds on." The Times of Israel cited a spokesman for the foreign ministry who called the headline unprecedented chutzpah and said the ministry was working on getting the news outlet to revise it. Terror group Hamas released a statement today saying that 2 of its members died when a tunnel they were digging collapsed. This is the second such collapse reported on by Hamas. Many of these terror tunnels were destroyed by Israel during Operation Protective Edge. Hamas has since been working to rebuild those tunnels in order to infiltrate into Israel from Gaza and carry out attacks. And in today's statement, Hamas reaffirmed that they would continue to do so. While the historic compromise regarding prayer at the Western Wall was welcomed by many Jewish groups in Israel and the U.S., there are those who have voiced their objection to the agreement, which designates a section of the holy site for non-Orthodox egalitarian prayer. The Times of Israel reports that yesterday, Israel's Deputy Education Minister Meir Porush of the ultra-Orthodox United Torah Judaism Party was cited as saying that Reform Jews are responsible for intermarriage in the U.S. and that the location of the new prayer area is in an out-of-the-way corner, which he said is where the Women of the Wall, the group that has been fighting for equality at the holy site, belong. Porush also said that the group should, quote, be thrown to the dogs. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu strongly condemned the comments. He said today, "I reject the recent disparaging and divisive remarks by ministers and members of Knesset about Reform Jews. Reform and conservative Jews are part and parcel of the Jewish people," he said, "and should be treated with respect." Netanyahu further stated the government approved this week a historic compromise that ensures that the Western Wall will continue to be a source of unity and inspiration for the entire Jewish people. "This is the government's policy," Netanyahu said. "This is my policy." Meanwhile, the director of the Masorti movement, which represents the conservative movement in Israel, Yitzhar Hess, said Porush's comments are full of Jew hatred, and he called on Netanyahu to fire the deputy minister. Anti-Israel activists handed out a fake edition of the New York Times to New Yorkers yesterday morning. Over 10,000 copies were given out at high-traffic areas like Grand Central Station, Penn Station, and Times Square in the city. The mock issue suggests that Israel is deserving of more criticism than the Times gives it. CEO of the Anti-Defamation League, Jonathan Greenblatt, said that while the creators of the fake paper are entitled to their view, however, he said, quote, "to do it in a surreptitious manner as they have done is deceptive." Greenblatt said the mock paper, which was published anonymously, delivers false facts and themes consistent with supporters of the BDS, boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement that seeks to delegitimize the State of Israel. And taking a look now at our programming for tonight on JBS for Wednesday, February the 3rd. At 7:40, former NBC newsman David Gregory talks about his personal Jewish journey from the Jewish Federation of North America's 2015 General Assembly in Washington. At 8, feminist scholar and author Phyllis Chesler talks about how Israel faces a dangerous alliance between radical Islamists and American academics in JBS's exclusive television coverage from ISGAP. At 9 o'clock, Mark Golub sits down with one of America's pioneering feminists, Letty Cotton Pogrebin, on L'chaim. And at 10, Executive Director of the Israel Religious Action Center, Anat Hoffman, talks about women's rights and religious pluralism in a program of Temple Bethel from Stamford, Connecticut. And coming up right after this newscast tonight, Thinking Out Loud with Micah Halpern. And that's the JBS News Update for Wednesday, February the 3rd, 2016. I'm Teisha Bader.